The star charts glowed blue on the main screen of the Vexful observation ship. Commander Zartek stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, his scaled skin reflecting the light as he studied the small blue planet that had caught their attention. "Report," he said to the crew. Analyst Nira moved her slender fingers across the control panel. "The planet is mostly water, Commander. The dominant species uses primitive combustion technology, no warp capability. Limited space travel confined to their own solar system." "Weapons?" Zartex asked. "Nuclear capability, but nothing that could reach beyond their moon. They fight mostly among themselves." Zartex nodded, his yellow eyes narrowing. "Classify them as Class C, no threat to our expedition." Naira hesitated, her fingers pausing over a flashing red indicator. "Commander, there's something unusual about their atmosphere. The readings show high levels of pollutants, radiation, and chemical compounds that would be toxic to most species. And yet they live there," asked Zartex. "They do. They breathe it daily." Zartex dismissed this with a wave. "Irrelevant. Prepare the report for the Council. This planet has rare minerals we need. The natives will not stop us." Lisa Baker stayed late at the observatory that night. The stars were especially clear, and she had work to finish. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail as she leaned toward her computer screen, frowning at the unusual data patterns. "Still here." John Miller walked in with 2 cups of coffee. He placed one beside her. "Look at this," Lisa said, pointing to her screen. "These signals don't match any known satellite patterns." John leaned closer, his beard almost touching her shoulder. "Probably just space junk reflecting signals. Happens all the time." "No, this is different." Lisa took a sip of coffee. "Whatever this is, it's moving with purpose, and it's watching us." John laughed. "You've been watching too many sci-fi movies." Lisa didn't smile. "I'm sending this data to other observatories. Something's out there, John." At the Vexful Council meeting, the holographic projection of Earth rotated slowly in the center of the room. 7 council members sat around it, their long robes trailing on the floor. "The report is clear," said Council Leader Vorex. "Earth has the minerals we need for our fleet expansion. The native species poses no threat." "What about their nuclear weapons?" asked Council Member Rin. "Primitive. Our shields would easily block them," Vorex replied. "And their atmosphere?" Naira had been invited to speak. She stood nervously before the council. "What about it?" Vorex seemed annoyed by the question. "The native species has adapted to breathe toxic compounds. Their lungs process chemicals that would kill most species in our alliance. This suggests remarkable biological adaptability." The council members exchanged glances. "Are you suggesting these primitives are dangerous, Analyst?" Vorex's voice was cold. Naira hesitated. "I'm suggesting we should study them more before we approach." Zartex stepped forward. "Council members, I have reviewed all data. These humans are divided by petty conflicts and primitive beliefs. They cannot even unite their own planet. They are no threat to us." The council voted. The decision was unanimous. Earth would be harvested. A small fleet would be sent first to study the humans up close. Across Earth, strange things began to happen. In Brazil, farmers reported unusual lights moving in formation. In Japan, fishing boats picked up metal objects that seemed to float back into the sky. In America, cell phones stopped working for 3 minutes at exactly the same time. At the Pentagon, General Scott Powell stared at the satellite images on his desk. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "We don't know, sir," said Captain Alan Reyes. "These objects appeared at the edge of our solar system 2 days ago. They're not asteroids. They move against the gravitational pull." "Have the Russians or Chinese said anything?" "No, sir. They're seeing it too. Everyone is quiet, watching." Powell reached for his phone. "Get me the president, and find Dr. Lisa Baker from the National Observatory. I just read her report." She's been tracking these things for weeks. The visitors were coming. Earth wasn't ready. The Vexthal ships moved silently through the darkness of space, their sleek metal bodies reflecting the distant light of stars. 5 vessels formed a perfect V-shape as they entered the solar system, slowing down near the gas giant Jupiter to avoid detection. Chief Science Officer Krell stood at his station, his 3-fingered hands moving quickly over the glowing panels. Unlike Commander Zartex, Krell believed in thorough research. His large eyes narrowed as he studied the readings from Earth. "This can't be right," he muttered, running the scan again. The second in command moved closer. "What troubles you, Krell?" "The atmospheric composition of this planet." Krell pointed to the screen. "Look at these levels of carbon dioxide, methane, nitrogen oxides, and radiation. According to our biology standards, this planet should be uninhabitable. Yet the natives thrive," said the second in command. Krell nodded slowly. "Not just survive. Thrive. They've been breathing this cocktail of toxins for centuries." He pulled up images of human cities, teeming with life. "Our species would die within days in such conditions." "Are you suggesting we reconsider the mission?" "I'm suggesting we need to understand them better before we underestimate them further." In a small office at NASA, Lisa Baker rubbed her tired eyes. For 3 days straight, she had tracked the movements of the unknown objects in space. Her new tracking algorithm had paid off. She could now predict their path with reasonable accuracy. A knock on her door made her look up. William Grayson from the Pentagon stood there with a stern-faced woman. "Dr. Baker," said Grayson, "this is Patricia Fields from Government Intelligence. We need to talk about your findings." Patricia closed the door behind them. "What you've discovered is now classified. Your data has been verified by 3 other stations. These objects are not natural, and they're heading toward Earth." Lisa's heart raced. "So I was right. They're not satellites or space debris." "No," said Patricia. "We believe they are extraterrestrial craft, and based on their trajectory, they'll reach Earth orbit within 48 hours. William handed Lisa an ID badge. "You're now part of Sentinel, a special task force dealing with this situation. We need your expertise." Frank Rodriguez was checking water samples on his boat when it happened. One moment he was looking at plankton under his portable microscope. The next a bright light surrounded him. The small research boat rocked violently in the suddenly choppy waters. Frank tried to grab his radio, but his body wouldn't move. A humming sound filled the air, growing louder until it was all he could hear. Then came the sensation of rising. His feet left the deck, and he floated upward into the light. His last conscious thought was of the water samples. Would they be useful to whoever was taking him? On the main Vexthal ship, Commander Zartex reviewed Krell's findings with growing concern. "You're certain about these atmospheric readings?" he asked. Krell nodded. "The humans have adapted to breathe air that contains elements that would kill us. Their lungs filter out toxins that would destroy our respiratory systems in minutes." "How is this possible?" "Generations of exposure," said Krell. "They evolved in these conditions. What's poison to us is normal to them." Zartex frowned. "Does this affect our mission?" "It should," Krell replied. "A species that can adapt to such conditions might have other resilience we haven't anticipated. I recommend we capture specimens for testing before proceeding with resource extraction." Zartex considered this. "Very well. Begin the abduction protocol. Select humans from different regions. We need to understand what we're dealing with." On the observation deck, the blue planet grew larger in the view screen. Earth, with its deadly atmosphere and adaptable inhabitants, waited unaware of the tests to come. In the Pentagon's basement, the Sentinel team gathered around a table covered with satellite images and data printouts. Lisa pointed to a blinking dot on the radar screen. "They've stopped moving," she said. "They're in orbit now, just watching." "Watching for what?" asked William. Patricia's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, then looked at the others with a grim expression. "It's starting," she said. "We have reports of disappearances. a marine biologist off the coast of Florida, a coal miner in West Virginia, a doctor in Tokyo. All vanished in flashes of light. The testing had begun. Frank Rodriguez woke up on a cold metal table. Bright lights shone in his eyes, and his head pounded with pain. He tried to move his arms, but found them strapped down. "Hello," he called out. His voice echoed in the strange room. "They can't understand you," said a woman's voice from nearby. Frank turned his head and saw another table with a woman strapped to it. She had short blonde hair and tired eyes. "Who are you?" he asked. "Dr. Olivia Winters, environmental scientist. I was taking soil samples in Oregon when they took me." She looked around the sterile white room. "I think we're on some kind of ship." Before Frank could respond, a door slid open. 3 tall creatures entered the room. They had scaled skin, 4 arms, and large yellow eyes. Frank's heart raced as he realized he was looking at actual aliens. The tallest alien approached a control panel and pressed several buttons. A glass chamber lowered from the ceiling, enclosing Frank's table. "What are they doing?" Frank asked, trying to keep the fear from his voice. Olivia watched with wide eyes. "I think they're testing us. They did this to me yesterday. They'll pump different gases into your chamber." The air around Frank began to change color. It turned slightly yellow, and a burning smell filled his nostrils. He coughed but found he could still breathe. On the other side of the room, Krell observed the human's reactions with fascination. The subject was exposed to a gas mixture that would kill a Vexthul in minutes, yet he merely showed discomfort. "Increase the concentration," Krell ordered his assistants. The yellow gas grew denser. Frank coughed harder, his eyes watering, but his vital signs remained stable. "Remarkable," Krell noted. "Their respiratory systems filter toxins at an incredible rate. No wonder they survive on their planet." His assistant checked another screen. The female showed similar resilience to radiation yesterday. Their cellular repair mechanisms work faster than ours. Krell touched his chin thoughtfully. "These humans are more durable than we thought. Commander Zartex needs to see these results." Back on Earth, Lisa Baker and military scientist Keith Douglas worked in a secure room at the Pentagon. Screens around them showed data from tracking systems worldwide. There, Keith pointed to a blinking dot. "That's definitely their ship. It's in low Earth orbit, mostly hidden from our regular tracking systems." Lisa studied the readings. "They're scanning specific areas before each abduction. Look at this pattern." Keith frowned. "They're focusing on people who work with Earth's natural elements: water, soil, air. They're studying our relationship with our environment," Lisa realized. "They want to know how we survive here. Why would aliens care about that?" Lisa thought for a moment. What if our normal is their nightmare? What if Earth's atmosphere is special? Keith's eyes widened. "You mean our pollution might be our defense?" "It's a theory worth exploring," Lisa said. "Let's gather atmospheric data from all abduction sites. There might be a pattern there too." In the Vexthul Command Center, Commander Zartex reviewed Krell's findings with growing concern. "Impossible," he said, looking at the test results. "No species should survive these conditions." "Yet they do," Krell insisted. "Humans have adapted to withstand radiation levels that would kill our kind. They breathe air filled with compounds we consider deadly. Their bodies repair damage faster than we predicted. Are they a threat to us?" Krell hesitated. "Directly? Perhaps not yet. Their technology is still primitive compared to ours, but their adaptability." He paused. "Commander, I accessed their information networks. Humans have a history of warfare unlike anything in our records. They've survived diseases, disasters, and their own destructive tendencies." "Show me," Zartex demanded. Krell displayed images of human history: world wars, nuclear tests, people living in highly polluted cities, survivors of devastating natural disasters. "They don't just survive," Krell said quietly. "They thrive in conditions that would destroy other species. And they fight. Always." They fight. Zartex's yellow eyes narrowed. The Council must know this. These humans are more dangerous than we thought. As they spoke, Frank and Olivia were making a discovery of their own. When the aliens weren't looking, they found they could communicate by tapping codes on their metal tables. And more importantly, they noticed how the aliens recoiled when exposed to even small amounts of Earth's air that clung to the humans' clothing. The hunters had overlooked something crucial. They might be the hunted here. Commander Zartex stood before the holographic display of the Vexful Council. Even across the vast distance of space, he could feel their disapproval. "Your report is disturbing, Commander," said Council Leader Vorex. "But it changes nothing. The invasion timeline will be accelerated. Our homeworld needs those resources." With respect, Zartex replied, "We should reconsider. These humans are more resilient than we thought." "They still have primitive weapons," another council member said. "Their technology cannot harm our ships." "It's not their technology that concerns me," Zartex explained. "It's their biology and their nature." The connection ended abruptly. Orders were orders. The full armada would arrive in 7 Earth days. Krell entered the command center, looking troubled. "Commander, you need to see this." On the main screen, images from Earth's information networks played one after another. Humans fighting wars. Humans surviving natural disasters. Humans rebuilding cities from rubble. "I've been studying their history," Krell said. "They'd been at war with each other almost constantly. They practiced for conflict even in peace. And this," he showed scenes from human entertainment. "These are their stories. They imagine wars with aliens. They prepare for threats they haven't even met." Zartex watched silently. "They imagine their own destruction over and over," Krell continued. "And in most of their stories, they win against impossible odds." "Fiction cannot harm us," Zartex said, but his voice lacked conviction. "It's not the fiction that's dangerous. It's the mindset it reveals," Krell replied. "They expect conflict. They prepare for it. Always." In their laboratory prison, Frank and Olivia had made contact with other human captives through the ventilation system. By speaking through the small air vents when the aliens were away, they learned there were 12 humans aboard the ship. "Has anyone else noticed how they react to our breath?" Frank asked during one of these quiet conversations. "Yes," came a voice through the vent. "The alien examining me started coughing when I breathed on him." He left the room quickly. Olivia's scientific mind turned this information over. "Our breath contains carbon dioxide, nitrogen, water vapor, and trace elements. Something in that mix hurts them," Frank concluded. "That's why they're so interested in how we survive in our atmosphere." A plan began to form in his mind. If they could somehow use Earth's air against their captors. Back on Earth, Lisa Baker stared at her computer screen in shock. "Keith, look at this." Keith Douglas leaned over her shoulder. The tracking system showed hundreds of new objects approaching Earth. "An armada," he whispered. "They're not just studying us. They're preparing to invade." Lisa grabbed her phone. "We need to warn the Sentinel team. And I think I know what they want, and what they fear." The Pentagon erupted into activity as the news spread. General Powell called an emergency meeting of military leaders and scientists. "Can we fight them?" someone asked. "Not with conventional weapons," Lisa answered. "But we might have something better." She pulled up her research. "They're studying our atmosphere because it's toxic to them. What we consider pollution might be our best defense." Keith nodded. "Their subjects are all people who work with environmental elements. The aliens are trying to understand how we survive here." "So Earth itself is our weapon," General Powell said slowly. "Exactly," Lisa replied. "And I just made contact with someone on their ship." Everyone turned to look at her. One of the abductees managed to send a signal using the aliens' own communication system, a marine biologist named Frank Rodriguez. "He says the aliens can't breathe our air." On the alien ship, Frank had discovered something useful. When the aliens ran tests on him, They sometimes left monitoring equipment attached. During one such test, he managed to access their computer system. The aliens' language was impossible to read, but numbers were universal. And what he saw terrified him. A fleet of ships, far larger than the one he was on, was heading for Earth. Just then, the door slid open. An alien researcher entered, different from the others. This one moved cautiously, almost friendly. It approached Frank's table and did something unexpected. It loosened his restraints. Frank froze, unsure what to do. The alien spoke, and a device on its wrist translated into broken English. Humans interesting. Help you. Want learn. It was a single ally in a ship of enemies. Frank would take what he could get. Can you help me reach the communications room? Frank asked. The alien tilted its head, considering, then nodded slowly. The clock was ticking. The Armada approached, and Earth's greatest defense would be its supposedly poisoned atmosphere. News of the approaching alien fleet spread quickly across Earth. Panic filled the streets of major cities. People rushed to buy supplies, clog highways, and seek shelter underground. Military forces worldwide moved into position, although everyone knew their weapons would be useless against such advanced technology. In the White House Situation Room, General Powell briefed the president on their limited options. Mr. President, conventional weapons won't work against their ships, but we may have an unconventional solution. The president looked up from the reports. I'm listening. Lisa Baker stepped forward. Sir, we believe the aliens are vulnerable to Earth's atmosphere. The very pollution they came to study might be our best weapon. How can air hurt advanced aliens? Asked the president. It's the nitrogen compounds, Keith Douglas explained. Our atmosphere is 78% nitrogen. We've evolved to breathe it, but to them, it's like poison gas. The president looked skeptical. And you know this how? We've made contact with abductees on their ship, Lisa said. A marine biologist named Frank Rodriguez has been sending us information. On the alien vessel, Frank followed the friendly researcher, whom he had named Doc, through the quiet corridors. His heart pounded with each step. Discovery would mean certain death. Where Olivia? Frank whispered. Doc made a gesture with his lower arms. Other lab. Get soon. They reached a door, and Doc pressed his three-fingered hand against a panel. The door slid open to reveal a small room filled with glowing screens. Communication here, Doc said. Quick. Others come soon. Frank rushed to what looked like the main console. Doc showed him how to activate the system, then stood guard at the door. Frank sent a message to the frequency Lisa had provided. This is Frank Rodriguez. I'm on the alien ship with 11 other humans. The aliens can't breathe our air. Nitrogen compounds hurt them badly. Their main fleet arrives in 5 days. They plan to harvest Earth's resources. He paused, then added, There's more. I found their ship plans. The ventilation system is their weakness. If we could release Earth's air inside their ships. Doc suddenly made an alarming sound. Others come. Go now. They hurried from the room, but not fast enough. An alarm blared throughout the ship. They had been discovered. In the Pentagon, Lisa received Frank's message with growing excitement. The ventilation system, she said to Keith. That's it. Keith pulled up schematics they had developed based on radar readings of the alien ship. If the aliens can't breathe our air, and we could somehow get our atmosphere into their ships, we need to extract the nitrogen compounds and concentrate them, Lisa said. Create something like tear gas, but specifically targeting their biology. General Powell joined them. I've spoken with chemical weapons experts. They're already working on it, but we need more information about the aliens' physical vulnerabilities. Frank mentioned they were going to rescue the other abductees, Lisa said. If they succeed, maybe they can gather more data. Frank and Doc reached the lab where Olivia was held. 3 other humans were there too, all strapped to examination tables. Doc quickly released them. What's happening? Olivia asked, rubbing her wrists where the restraints had been. "We've been discovered," Frank said, "but Doc is helping us. We need to find the others and gather information on the aliens' weaknesses." One of the other humans, a woman with dark skin and curly hair, spoke up. "I was being tested when one of them had an accident. A vial broke. Something from Earth. The alien collapsed, couldn't breathe." "What was in the vial?" Frank asked. "Air sample from a factory in China. Heavy smog. Lots of nitrogen dioxide." Frank looked at Doc. "Is there a way to access the ship's environmental systems?" Doc nodded. "Central hub. Very guard." "Very guarded," Frank corrected automatically. "But if we could reach it." Olivia understood immediately. "We could pump Earth air throughout the entire ship." Alarms continued to sound. Through a window, they could see Earth, beautiful and blue. Somewhere down there, humans were preparing to fight back. And up here, a small group of abductees was about to strike the first blow. "Let's move," Frank said. "We have a ship to take." The skies above Earth filled with alien ships. They appeared first as small dots, then grew larger until they blocked the sun in some areas. People watched in fear as the massive vessels took position around the planet. Commander Zartek stood on the bridge of the lead ship, observing Earth on the main screen. The blue planet looked peaceful from this distance. "Begin the first wave," he ordered. Smaller ships detached from the fleet and descended toward major cities. Their mission was to secure landing zones for the resource harvesting teams. But inside the original scout ship, where Frank and the other humans were still captive, a different battle was underway. Frank, Olivia, and 4 other escaped humans crept through the service tunnels of the alien vessel. Doc led the way, his scaled skin appearing ghostly in the dim emergency lighting. "How much farther to the environmental control center?" Frank whispered. "Near," Doc replied. "Very guard. Many soldier." They reached a junction and peered around the corner. 2 armed Vexful guards stood outside a large door. "That's it," Doc confirmed. "Control all air." Frank turned to the group. "Remember the plan. We only have one chance." The humans had armed themselves with makeshift weapons, metal pipes and tools taken from storage areas. More importantly, each carried containers of Earth materials they had collected from the labs, soil samples, plant matter, and vials of water and air. Olivia nodded to a woman beside her, ready with the distraction, Carol. Carol, a firefighter from Detroit, held up a bundle of wires she had ripped from a panel. "Ready. Just tell me when." Frank gave the signal. Carol tossed the wires onto an exposed circuit at the far end of the corridor. Sparks flew, and an alarm sounded. The guards ran toward the disturbance, weapons ready. "Now," Frank shouted. They rushed toward the unguarded door. Doc pressed his hand to the panel, and the door slid open. Inside, 2 Vexful technicians looked up in surprise. Before they could react, the humans were on them. The fight was brief but desperate. The aliens were stronger, but the humans fought with the fury of those protecting their home world. When it was over, the technicians lay unconscious, and the humans controlled the room. Doc moved quickly to the main console. "Here, control all air." Frank and Olivia worked under Doc's guidance, rerouting the ship's ventilation system. "Ready," Olivia said finally. "Once we activate this, Earth air will flow into every part of the ship." Frank nodded grimly. "Do it." On Earth, military forces launched the first counterattack. Fighter jets scrambled worldwide, not with conventional weapons, but carrying special payloads, canisters of concentrated nitrogen compounds, developed in hours by scientists working around the clock. In the Pentagon Command Center, Lisa Baker watched the radar screens. "The first wave of alien ships is entering our atmosphere. Deploy the nitrogen bombs," General Powell ordered. Around the world, pilots released their unusual weapons. The canisters burst near the alien ships, creating clouds of what appeared to be green-tinged smoke. At first, nothing happened. The alien vessels continued their descent. Then, One ship began to wobble in the air. Another veered off course. Within minutes, several were plummeting toward the ocean. Lisa clutched Keith's arm. It's working. Their hulls aren't completely sealed against our atmosphere. On the main alien ship, Zartex received alarming reports. What do you mean? The ships are failing. How can primitive weapons affect our technology? An officer looked up from his console, his yellow eyes wide with fear. It's not weapons, Commander. It's their air. Somehow, they've weaponized their atmosphere against us. Before Zartex could respond, alarms blared throughout his ship. The ventilation system indicators flashed red. The scout ship, the officer said. It's broadcasting a distress signal. The human captives have taken control of environmental systems. Zartex felt the first burning sensation in his lungs. Someone had released Earth's toxic atmosphere into the ship's air supply. Evacuate, he ordered. All ships pull back beyond the planet's orbit. But for many of the invaders, the order came too late. The air they had dismissed as merely primitive was now proving to be their deadliest enemy. Frank watched from the control room as alien crew members collapsed in the corridors. Doc, protected by a breathing mask Frank had insisted he wear, looked at the humans with new respect. Humans strong, he said simply. Vexthul not understand. No, Frank agreed, watching the alien armada beginning to retreat on the monitors. They didn't understand that what makes Earth harsh to them made us stronger. The first battle was over. Earth had won. 3 weeks after the failed invasion, Earth was still on high alert. Military bases around the world maintained stockpiles of the nitrogen weapons that had proved so effective. Space agencies kept constant watch on the skies, but the alien fleet had retreated beyond the moon, and no further attacks had come. In a secure facility in Nevada, Frank Rodriguez and Olivia Winters sat across from Lisa Baker and Keith Douglas. Between them on the table lay pieces of alien technology recovered from the scout ship. These translation devices alone will advance our technology by decades, Keith said, examining one of the wrist units that Doc had given them. Frank nodded. Doc said it was the least he could do. He feels his people were wrong to try to take our planet. Speaking of Doc, Lisa said, how is he adapting to our atmosphere? Better than expected, Olivia answered. The medical team created a special breathing mixture for him. He can tolerate short exposures to our air now. He's eager to learn more about us. A military officer entered the room. The president is ready for your briefing. They gathered their notes and followed him to a conference room where government officials from around the world waited. Some attended in person, others via secure video links. The president nodded for them to begin. Lisa stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to the brave actions of our abductees and the information provided by the alien defector we call Doc, we now understand what happened. The Vexthul severely underestimated humans because they judged us by our technology, not our biology. Frank continued, what they didn't account for was our remarkable adaptability. Humans have evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most species in their alliance. Our ability to process toxins, resist radiation, and adapt to changing environments made us far more resilient than they expected. The most important discovery, Olivia added, is that our nitrogen-rich atmosphere is toxic to them. What we breathe as life-giving air is poison gas to their physiology. The president leaned forward. And what about the alien fleet? Will they return? Keith brought up images on the main screen showing the alien ships still visible near the edge of the solar system. They're maintaining distance, but they're watching us. According to Doc, their council is in turmoil. This is the first time they've failed to conquer a planet. Aboard the Vexthul command ship, Commander Zartex stood before the holographic council. His posture was stiff, prepared for punishment. You failed, Council Leader Vorix stated flatly. Yes, Zartex admitted. We underestimated the humans. Explain. Krell stepped forward. Council members, I've completed my analysis. Humans are unique among all species we've encountered. They've evolved in conditions we consider hostile to life. Their planet's atmosphere, which we thought primitive and polluted, has shaped them into resilient beings. He displayed data on human adaptability, immune response, and cellular regeneration. Most remarkably, Krell continued, they've maintained this adaptability despite developing technology. Other species grow weaker as they advance. Humans maintain their biological strengths while adding technological ones. The council murmured among themselves. What do you recommend? Vorix finally asked. Reclassify Earth immediately, Zartek said. They are not Class C. They are Class A. Too dangerous to approach without permission. And more, Krell added. I believe we should attempt diplomatic contact. The humans allowed our researcher to live. They show capacity for mercy alongside their strength. 6 months later, a single Vexthul ship approached Earth. It carried no weapons, only a delegation led by Krell, who had studied humans most closely. They came with an offer, knowledge exchange rather than conquest. In a historic meeting at the United Nations, Doc served as translator between his people and humans. The first formal words between species were simple but profound. We misjudged you, Krell said to the assembled human leaders. We saw your atmosphere and thought you primitive for living in what we consider poison. Now we understand. It is not that your world is toxic. It is that you are extraordinary for thriving in it. Frank, watching from the audience, smiled. Humanity's greatest weakness had proved to be its greatest strength. The poison planet had produced a species too resilient to conquer. Earth took its first steps into a larger universe that day, respected not for advanced technology, but for the remarkable ability to adapt and overcome. The species that breathed poison had earned its place among the stars.